What is actually the perfect audience size for your Facebook campaigns? Something we've already heard 1,000 times is that the algorithm doesn't like constraints, especially with regards to placements and with regards to the audience size, the audiences you're going after. We'll talk about in a moment why it's important to go after big audiences, but let me tell you first why it's a rookie mistake and usually pretty bad if you're going after very small audiences of, let's say, like 10, 20,000 people or maybe like 50,000 people. First thing that can happen if your audience is super small, you will run into delivery issues. And the second thing that does usually happen is that chances are you're not going after the best converting audience here. You're excluding everybody else on Facebook, and maybe your perfect audience, your ideal audience, is an audience segment you're not reaching because of the constraint you put on the algorithm. You remember the algorithm works in two phases. Number one, we have the exploration phase, so it's exploring the landscape for 3 to 5 days, and after that time, it's moving to phase number two, and that's the exploitation phase. It's trying to exploit an ideal audience that the algorithm determined, right? So something you should remember, algorithm doesn't like constraints, especially with regards to audiences, so go after big audiences. What does that mean? Our recommendation is go after audiences with at least 1 million people in it, unless you're in a niche market where your audience is, let's say, only 300,000 people, then of course it doesn't make sense to go after bigger audiences. However, if you're launching campaigns in mass markets like the beauty space, go after larger audience of at least 1 million people in it. What's the result of going after big audiences? Well, first of all, we already covered that as a negative aspect. There's just a higher chance to find your best converting audience because you're giving the algorithm more room to optimize and to explore. It will result in lower CPCs and CPMs. Frequency is always an issue, but with big audiences, frequency becomes an issue later down the road. To small audiences, actually very, very early in the launch and optimization process. So that's forcing you essentially to constantly launching new ads. And going after bigger audiences is necessary if you want to scale. You cannot scale a campaign if you're going after a small audience only. If, let's say, you have an audience of 200,000 people and you try to go after that audience with $2,000 daily budget, something you will see is that your CPAs are gonna go up, your CPCs, your CPMs, your relevance score will start to drop, and frequency will become an issue. So if you want to scale, you have to go after bigger audiences anyways.